this brought up three-prong forks. Brought up, with savoring food with like crab meat, or it brought up ice cream fork.
Ice
And I go,
cream fork?
what the hell's an ice cream fork? And so I looked this up. Any guesses what it is?
All right, hold on. An ice... Is it a spork?
It's a fucking spork! It is
Yes!
a spork!
Nailed it!
And if you look it up, like, what's the difference between a spork and an ice cream fork? People are like, ice cream forks are usually better quality. I'm like, it's the same thing! And so now every time I go to KFC, I'm going to be like, could I have another ice cream fork, please?
They're gonna spit on your chicken now.
Yeah.
Worth it.
If we were...
Welcome to Theoretical Nonsense, the Big Bang Theory watch-along podcast. No PhD necessary.
We're the podcast that recaps all episodes of The Big Bang Theory. No spoilers.
So hop into your favorite spot,
make yourself a grasshopper, and enjoy the ride.
Hello there, Ryan.
Hi, Rob.
How are you doing?
I'm well. How are you doing?
I'm doing great because we just watched the Cooper-Nowitzki Theorem.
Yeah,
for any new listeners or watchers out there now, I'm Rob, and this is my co-host Ryan. We are Theoretical Nonsense, the podcast that recaps, reviews, and deep dives facts from the Big Bang Theory, which we call IQ points. I've seen the series multiple times, and this is Ryan's first time watching, so we do our best to do no spoilers. And Ryan has been told that he's very similar to Sheldon, so we keep a tally point system of how close Ryan is to being a Sheldon. So, where are we at? You still a Sheldon?
I am still a Shelley by 1 point, 33 to 34.
Wow, it's been neck and neck like the entire series so far.
Mm-hmm. And this episode has a few points both ways. I haven't tallied them up yet, so I'm curious where it's going to go because I feel like it might shift the other way. I don't know.
Ooh, let's hope so because we don't want to.
We don't want a Shelley on our hands.
We don't want a Shelley. Well, in kind of Big Bang Theory news, I've been watching Poker Face. I don't know if you've seen Poker Face, but the actor who plays Howard is in a few episodes of that.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's why it was a little noteworthy. And if anybody hasn't seen Poker Face on the Peacock app, it is amazing. It is so good.
I've heard good things. I need to take some time to watch it. I'm in the middle of finals week, so I've been grading nonstop, but I'm going on vacation, and I figure I might download some episodes to watch.
Oh, nice. Where are you going?
On a cruise with my parents. They like to cruise with me once a year, and catch up, Caribbean stuff, and basically just stay on board drinking and reading books.
Hell yeah! And watching Poker Face now.
Poker Face, yeah. Now that's a vacation.
Yep. And before I get into a little bit of housekeeping, I want to do my neighbor updates. For anybody, if this is your first time joining, about a month ago, I had like the craziest thing happen to me. I go into a deep dive story a couple episodes ago. So if you haven't listened to all the episodes, I strongly suggest you do, because it's a doozy to what happened. But
I've heard from a few listeners that they were pretty surprised about the story, so it's worth listening to. I was shocked when he told me.
If you're a fan of true crime, then this is my true crime story. But a quick update, if you'd I guess if you want to go back and listen to it, I forgot what episode. It was like, what, two episodes ago?
I think
3
episodes ago? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I should note that.
So that would be episode 4, I think?
Okay, yeah. If anyone's interested in hearing the whole story, go back to our episode 22, which is season 2, episode 4, The Griffin Equivalency, where I will tell you the whole story. It's like a 30-minute story. It's true crime. But jumping ahead for a little update.
Spoiler alert.
Kind of. I just got a little bit more insight on... I've been trying to keep up to date with The Neighbor and everything, like who's in jail right now and what's happening, they did post up like an eviction notice on there, or at least an attempt. Like, so they are trying to evict her out, which
Oh.
understandable, because we actually got a notice, an email from the HOA that unfortunately they can't even do any repairs to the house until she's officially evicted.
Oh.
So like it's still boarded up. There's still broken glass like everywhere and everything like that. It's like really looks terrible. But yeah, what happened? I looked into this because on a really sunny day, Christina just had the window open just because she wanted to let some fresh air in, and then she overheard like somebody yelling on a phone, and she was like, "Whoa, what's happening?" And she looked outside. Somebody is parked out at the house, and everything just kind of just like yelling about like, what do you mean? Like I can't get it. It must have been the landlord or the owner of the house, because he was probably renting it out to them.
Yeah.
So he was like complaining about like blah blah blah, and the kind of muffle, can't really understand. But then something about like 9 felony warrants, that the boyfriend had like 9 felonies against him, so, or at least like 9 warrants or something like that on him. So it's like, how could he possibly live here? How is that even possible? Blah blah blah. With like, so then I was like, whoa, the guy had 9 felony warrants against him, or is it just one warrant with 9 charges? We couldn't really tell, but I decided to like look him up, and yep, I found him.
Oh no.
Because all this stuff is like public information.
Yeah.
So I looked it up, and there were, on the website, there was 15 charges against him, and that was as of February of 2021. So he was a wanted criminal. And it was things like assault on a law enforcement officer, fleeing an officer, and careless and reckless driving. So based off the stories that I put together, it turns out like he was getting pulled over, and the police officer saw him throw something out of his car window, apparently drugs, probably, and then he drove away. So it was a chase after him. He pulls into a parking lot. A police officer caught up to him. He fought him off and fled. So that's why there was a warrant out for his arrest.
Wow. And he got away. He must have, because he was living next to you.
Yep, he got away, and then he's been hiding out, which makes sense of like why he was like hiding all the time, like why we never saw him.
Wow. I feel like that wouldn't be fun, like having to hide your whole life, right?
Yeah, or like why you hid in the state that you're wanted in.
Oh, that too, yeah.
Dude, it's like I won't say where I'm at, but I'll just cut this part out or bleep it out, but like 30 minutes away. It's like, bro, just cross the border.
Just go.
What the hell?
A lot of mountains in those Virginia, is gonna say.
And the thing is, in the warrants, the neighbor who's in jail, the girlfriend, her name was listed as like so and so is his girlfriend. So it's like you'd think that police would constantly like be checking in on her.
Yeah.
Hey, have you seen your boyfriend?
It really, I don't know how warrants work. Like, they just happen to, if they find you, but they're not actively searching for you, I guess, right?
I guess, yeah. Well, if anyone knows, shoot us a comment.
Yeah. IQ point for another day.
Yeah. Not part of the episode, but speaking of that, we are a Big Bang Theory rewatch, so back to that. Back to housekeeping. We have an Instagram account. Feel free to follow us at Theoretical Nonsense Pod. Check us out on YouTube. Like and subscribe. Email us at theoreticalnonsensepod@gmail.com. And give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, and we'll give you a shout out. And we got a new 5-star. So no full review, but it was a 5-star rating. So we're at 19 reviews/ratings now. And I'll give a shout out because I know who it was. It was my brother. Thank you. Much appreciated.
Thank you
And a
much.
shout out to his wife for actually listening to an episode.
Nice.
I hope you listen to the rest of them. She said that she only listens to it during her commute to work, so it's in very short increments.
That's fair. I mean, that's what
So,
podcasts are
so
good for, right? Just filling the
yeah.
air. Yeah.
So she'll probably hear this shout out in about 5 years. So well, thank you for listening and thank you for the review. It's much appreciated.
Yes, yes.
And I checked earlier, no new emails.
No, but I did see the one that we've hit, what, 3,500 downloads?
Oh, I didn't even see that
Yeah,
one.
somewhere. And I was like, wow, we be doing it.
All right.
Yeah,
Let's
on
keep it up.
the 13th, 3,500 podcast downloads.
Awesome.
So
Well, thank
somebody's
you.
downloading it.
Yeah. I have 3,000 accounts. Just clicking download.
And I have 500.
Wow.
Explains a lot.
All right. Well, any other housekeeping?
No, I think that's it.
All right. We could dive into the episode. What'd you think of this one?
I liked it. It's on the top of my list. Definitely for the season, possibly so far watching it.
It was a good one. I really like this one. I didn't have a lot of IQ points. I only collected 5 so far, but this was a really fun episode. I think I watched it like 5 times in preparation of this, just because I just kept enjoying it.
I could see that. I typically watch and like pause it and go back and rewind it and then do some research and like go forward and like kind of interact with it while I'm watching it. But this would be one that I would go back and watch just for fun, or if somebody asked me to recommend an episode, this would be a go-to.
All right, well, let's get into this episode. All right. Getting into this episode, this is Season 2, Episode 6, The Cooper-Nowitzki Theorem, aired November 3rd, 2008. Written by Chuck Lorre, Bill Prady, and teleplay by Tim Doyle. And directed, as always, Mark Zandrowski. So, opening scene, Leonard is in front of a class discussing his career in experimental physics. And apparently he spilled peach Snapple into a helium neon laser. And his advice to all the students is don't do it.
Don't do it.
And this leads...
great demonstration.
Yeah. And right off the bat, here's our first IQ point. So I looked into what a helium neon laser is.
I did too. I mean, after doing a little research, it kind of seemed like there's not a lot to it. I want to see what you got, because maybe I missed some stuff.
Yeah. Well, I found most of this information on Wikipedia, and I also found the applications of it on globalspec.com and powertechnology.com. So, a helium neon laser. This is a laser that consists of, helium and neon. Go figure.
Who would have thought?
Yeah. It's a 10-to-1 ratio of helium to neon at a total pressure of 1 torr. And a torr is a unit of pressure. So, and it's usually contained in a glass envelope. In the mixture, helium gets excited when they collide with neon, and it creates higher pressure. So neon on its own can create a laser, but at a much smaller pressure. Thus, adding helium makes it stronger. And I looked into the applications because Leonard is in the experimental physics field. So it's like, what's he actually doing with it?
Yeah.
So I don't know what he was doing with it, but here are some of the applications. So helium neon lasers are low cost and simple to use when compared to other gas lasers. They have historically been used for many applications within the fields of microscopy, barcode scanning, spectroscopy. Wait, I'm saying that wrong. Spectroscopy, optical disc reading, biomedical engineering, metrology, and holography. Since the introduction and improvement of semiconductor lasers, however, many users are now utilizing smaller and more efficient laser diodes in place of helium neon lasers. especially in confocal microscopy, which is optical imaging techniques. So what I've learned is that helium neon lasers are pretty old in technology. So some of the earliest laser pointers were helium neon lasers.
That's
But
what I was
now
thinking.
they
Like, I was picturing like cavemen making helium neon lasers in caves and like shooting each other with them. Like, they're pretty basic. They're pretty
yeah,
old.
I think I've seen that cave art.
Yeah, right.
But now most laser pointers have moved on to infrared and DPSSL, which stands for diode pump solid state lasers. However, helium neon lasers are still being used today to measure distances with extreme precision, mostly in construction and equipment calibration, and telescope alignment, and laser shows. So,
Oh,
helium neon lasers create a beam strong enough to be seen in light, making them ideal for laser shows. And that's what I
that makes
found.
sense. I think I had pretty much the same thing. I went to physicsandradioelectronics.com, and I kind of liked when you put their abbreviations together, you would call it a HENI laser, helium neon HENI. um, but yeah, it's basically like you said. This you get this tube of helium and neon gases, and you put them between two mirrors, and you agitate it with a DC power supply or something, and the photons get released. They bounce off the mirrors and come out like one exit, and that produces the laser. And like you said, these are some of the cheapest, low cost. They are pretty stable. They're in the visible spectrum. They last at high temperatures, but they are low efficiency, low power, and low gain. So they're not like the strongest, I guess. But like you said, they're pretty old and true and tested.
So, Dr. Evil is not going to be using this to destroy the world.
Precisely. Maybe it'll take a long time in a big magnifying glass or something.
Yeah. It'll take about 2 billion years, but we'll get there.
2 billion years.
Billion. Anything else on Heenies?
That's all I got for the Heenies.
All right. Well, then Leonard introduces Sheldon to present next on his career as a theoretical physicist. Sheldon is very reluctant to speak to the class, and turns out that Leonard had to bribe him to go to the comic book store, which is I would say, a nice handy trick to get Sheldon to do whatever you want. It's kind of goes back to the previous episode that he can't drive, so it's like anytime you want Sheldon to do something, just say, "I guess I'm not taking you to the comic book store.
Guess we're not going to the comic store."
Yeah. Well, Sheldon feels that he's above everyone else, and that it's not worth his time to explain to the labradoodles what his work is. And Sheldon speaks and is very insulting to the class, saying that maybe one or two of them will shine in this field, but they're more likely to teach fifth grade and make paper mache volcanoes with baking soda. And I just like, Leonard's like, oh god.
Doesn't he throw in there too?
It's spiraling.
Like, I was in your place too, but I was 14 and had a 9 p.m. bedtime.
Yeah, and he still accomplished more than what they ever will.
Yeah.
Yep. Sheldon continues to insult them by saying that whomever told them they could actually make a significant contribution to the field played a cruel, cruel trick on them. And he's like, any questions? And just silence. And he says, of course not. I weep for the future of science. And Leonard gets a little high and mighty. He's like, oh, guess the laser demonstration is looking pretty good now, huh?
I like that he adds on there too. He's like, I weep for the future of science. Now take me to my comic book. Let's get the newest Batman.
Yeah, the new Batman's out.
Batman.
Yeah, at this point, I wonder, did the new 52 come out at this time? I don't know if you're into comics, but it might have been around this time.
I'm not into. I'm into some comics. I like the classy stuff. with the blood and the gore and the demons.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The caveman blood and gore.
Yeah, the caveman lasers burning each other and the gore.
Yeah.
I call them my heenies.
Yeah. Heenie books.
Daddy wants his heenies.
Well, now we have the credit scene. So now we're at the University Cafe. Raj has a very sentimental view of fall. The leaves are turning and there's a bracing chill in the air. Just very romantic, very poetic about it. And then Howard gets creepy.
1 point for being like Raj here. I love the fall. I love it so much, and I get poetic. I love the fall. Like
Yes.
Raj. And
so you don't like it like how Howard likes it?
I don't like it in the same way. Although there's something to be said about, what do they call them? High socks and stocking and tight weather. Nothing wrong with tight weather. But for the most part, I like the fall because when the skies are blue, they're like incredibly blue. The leaves start changing. It starts getting cold. And I know the heat of the summer is finally over, and I'm happy at last. At least for 6 months.
Yep. And it's PSL time. Pumpkin spice latte.
PSL.
And then, well, Howard gets creepy. He says that there's a whole new crop of female grad students that are going to gain enough winter weight and just lose self-esteem. It's like, well, all the loss of self-esteem in the world, they're not going to fall into your arms, Howard. Sorry.
He goes, eat that calzone. I can wait.
Daddy can wait. Well, then Raj says or asks, isn't there a policy that you can't date students? And Leonard says, no, if you can talk to them, you can ask them out. And I love Raj. He's like, damn it, there's always a catch.
There's always a catch. Yeah, I made note of that. Damn, always a catch.
Then enter our favorite, Leslie Winkle.
Woohoo!
And she has another wonderful interaction between her and Sheldon. Sheldon, she comments like, hey, I heard you made some grad students cry, or something like that.
Calling him a dumbass as always, right?
Yep. Sheldon asks, well, why should I cater to second-rate minds? And Leslie has a great comeback, because first-rate minds call you dumbass. And then enter Ramona. And we have a guest star alert.
Guest star.
Ricky Lindholm. One half of Garfunkel Notes.
Yeah.
And
I love
most
her.
recently in Wednesday, and known for Another Period. Yep. Are you a fan of Garfunkel Notes?
I am.
Have you heard? Oh, I love them.
I
my
love
god,
them.
They're so good. I was gonna say I pushed for one of their songs to actually be like one of our wedding songs.
Really?
Yeah.
How'd that go?
Not great. Yeah, it didn't pass the wipe test, so you know what? It's all good. I still love that song.
I went to a Catholic all-boys high school, and they have a song about going to like Catholic girls' schools, and God's
the loophole.
Yeah.
Oh my god! Do you ever watch reaction videos to that?
I don't think so.
There's like a whole like thing about like reaction videos where you play that song for someone and you just listen and you record their reaction. If anybody out there, like, definitely not for kids. So
no.
If you got kids, don't. But listen to the loophole.
Mm-hmm.
It's so good.
It is high class entertainment.
They had one season of a TV show on Comedy Central. It might still be on Netflix, but it was really good. It's too bad that it got canceled.
I don't think I saw that. I know I watched their comedy special, or one of their comedy specials.
Yeah.
And I think I got into them because who is the second part? What's her name?
Kate Micucci.
Yeah, Micucci plays on Scrubs, right? The
Yep.
Gucci, is that her name?
Yeah. I don't know her character's name, but I know like everyone called her Gooch.
The Gooch, yeah.
Yeah.
And she dates the lawyer, and
Yep.
she has some line that is just so perfect, and she executes it so well. Where the lawyer's like, "Everybody thinks I'm so stupid or something." He's belittling himself, and she goes, "I don't." It's like, oh,
Yeah. She's great.
she is great. They're both great. I was so happy
Maybe
to
she'll
see.
pop in at some
Uh,
point.
oh, she
Ah.
never comes in.
Gotcha. Idiot.
How are you finding those screenplays, Ryan? They don't exist.
Well, Ramona Nowitzki introduces herself as a big fan of Sheldon, and Howard fails at hitting on her when he discusses his space toilet. Surprised that didn't work. And then
Again, ew.
Yeah. Well, as Ramona is speaking with Sheldon, Sheldon is very impressed with her and her signs of intelligence. And then they start talking about what Sheldon is working on, and honestly, I didn't bother doing an IQ point.
I actually did one on, I kind of started with what Sheldon's working on, and it kind of connects to something later, but at the end of the day it hurt my head. But I did do one on space station waste. Yeah, so what Howard was working on. So from nasa.gov, well, first of all, I think it's really interesting that NASA has what are called NTAs, and basically they're NASA tournaments where they basically we have this issue. What can you come up with? And different organizations and people like strive for like the best solution or a solution. And last I heard in 2018, I couldn't find any follow-ups or what's happened with it, but they had one with waste, not just water, but trying to recycle waste in high temperature reactors to extract water, oxygen, and other gases for reuse aboard the station. Right now, for waste, and this goes apparently with poop and other forms of waste, they basically put it all into bags, put it into a storage bin, and send it into the atmosphere where it just burns up before it hits Earth. So it's kind of like when we were talking about that blue ice from a previous episode.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what type of ice this could come down as, but I'm guessing it all burns up before, but you never know. It could be an astronaut's poop.
And the little particles are flying in the air.
Exactly. And I got that this is kind of an issue because, according to the statistics on nasa.gov, 4 astronauts per year create about 2,500 kilograms of waste. So that's mostly solid
That's
waste.
a lot. Wow.
Right? Yeah, we are. That's a lot. But everything's
Yeah.
like in big bags and stuff, and I guess they try to reuse, but I went to a place called, oh man, Hirix.com, and it talked more about the water waste. And I like this. They had a YouTube video, and I believe it was from the Canadian government and astronauts on the International Space Station, saying that right now the International Space Station reclaims about 93% of water that is used. And they do this through absorbing moisture and air, which is interesting because, I mean, if you're sweating, that sweat's going to come off of you and turn into humidity. And somehow they have something that sucks out of the air. And they have, their words, not mine, a urine hose. So when you go potty, they have a hose that drains you, I guess, or you drain into it. I don't know, one or the other.
So it's kind of like a very large catheter.
Yeah. I imagine it's kind of the opposite of a catheter. It doesn't go on the inside; it goes on the outside. But I don't know. I'm not an astronaut. And they have real-time purification, and they this YouTube video is really cool. They had all photos of all the machines, but they have filters, and they have like a keg-sized distiller that spins to create artificial gravity and like pull the liquid through different filters and different gadgets to basically make it cleaner than what we drink on Earth.
Oh.
And so technically they are basically re-drinking their urine and re-drinking their sweat, but at the same time, that's what we're drinking. Everything we drink is evaporated and then going to the oceans, or the oceans, streams, rivers. So technically, theirs is more purified. But yeah, right now, it would make sense that Howard was working on something to help reclaim that 93% and make it a little bit higher of a statistic.
Very cool. So he needs to say stuff like that.
Right? Yeah. But, at the end of the day, Howard was working on poop and pee.
All he has to do is say, I work, NASA has problems, I solve them.
I solve them. I'm a man of mystery.
Come on, man. Howard could be a lady killer. If he just angled it right, like, if he just rephrased some of the things that he says, and that, because he has the confidence, he has like he can approach anyone and just have a conversation. He doesn't get nervous or anything like that. It's just like what he says. He just needs to rethink about what he's saying.
He's a step ahead of Raj in that order, that he's able to get up there and out there. He just needs to reevaluate the conversation and dialogue.
Yeah,
and I fall into this all the time, but it's true. It's true.
Yeah. Just think before you speak.
It's like that episode of Friends where Rob's flirting with the pizza girl.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
Wait, did you just have a Freudian slip and say Rob?
Oh yeah,
I think you said Rob. No. Rob was flirting with the pizza girl, which baby I don't do.
Now I can't remember his name. What's his name? I'm only
Ross.
Ross. Damn. Oh no. Ross and Rob.
There's an area near us, and it's actually called Ross. It's a township and everything. And every time we pass by, I'm always like, Ross can.
Ross can.
Ross can.
Sting was singing about you.
Yeah. All right, but this isn't a Friends rewatch. This is a Big Bang Theory.
Exactly. We're not here to talk about Ross or Rob. We're here to talk about Sheldon.
All right. Anything more on space station waste?
Nope. And I'm going to save what little I had to offer on what Sheldon's been working on for the black hole discussion.
Okay. Oh, so you got some more stuff.
Nice. I tried. I'm not making promises, but
yeah, all the sciencey stuff. Like I do into we'll get into the rest of my IQ points, but Sheldon says that he's very close to showing how neutrinos emerge from a string net condensation, and Ramona goes on by saying that it's something that can change the way we look at the physical universe. And Sheldon gets a little cocky. I kind of like this. It's like, it's what I do.
I put a point in for being like Howard here, because of saying dumb stuff, and especially when he goes, my system is turning heads too. And I think maybe not what he said, but her reaction to look at him like, the fuck. I'm like, I've seen that look before. I know that look. So I'm getting 1 point. Getting a...
All right. Which brings you neck and neck.
Yeah. Okay, lady. Getting an ooh again look from a lady. 1 point for a Howard or somebody that's not Sheldon. Okay.
All right. Well, Ramona asks Sheldon out to coffee, but Sheldon doesn't do coffee. However, he does eat dinner. So she wants to go to an Italian restaurant, but then Sheldon doesn't eat at new restaurants in fear of non-standard cutlery. The 3-tined fork. He says 3 tines is a trident. Forks are for eating. Tridents are for ruling the 7 seas. I like that line.
That was a good line. Did you do some research into forks?
Yes, I did.
Good. Your turn. I want to see what you got. This was
so yeah, I don't do anything regarding science. I do stuff like this because if this is your first time listening or watching, I love food and I will turn this into a food podcast if it kills me.
He's trying his hardest.
So, yeah. But yeah, I remember long ago I actually read a book on basically kitchen equipment and the evolution of it.
Oh.
And I loved it. It basically it starts off with eating things raw to
Uh-huh.
man-made fire and then how it evolved into like how all of our equipment, everything from forks to knives to blenders and everything like that,
Mm-hmm.
evolves with the food that we eat. So as food changes and as trends happen, our equipment changes too. So it was a
Oh.
book that documented pretty much every change throughout history. It was great. Totally forgot what it was called, but but it was long ago.
I
Well,
was like 5 at the time.
well, I looked into what makes a fork. So I found this amongst dictionary.com, eatingutensils.net, and blog.scientificamerican.com. So to define a fork is an instrument having 2 or more prongs or tines for holding, lifting, etc., as an implement for handling food or any various agricultural tools. It comes from the Latin word furca, which means pitchfork. So 2 or more makes sense, because like a fork in the road.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, so it could be 2. So Sheldon, I think he's just being a little nitpicky. So,
Which is weird for Sheldon. Like, this is a personal bias because the more I looked into it, like you said, by definition, it's still a fork. It's just his personal preference doesn't want to admit that.
yeah. And also in chess, there's something called a fork. It's when you have a piece that attacks 2 or more opponents at the same time. So again, 2. So it only requires 2 to be a fork.
Huh.
And then I got a little bit into the history of forks. Forks have been known to appear in cooking chambers of many ancient civilizations, including ancient Egypt, China, and Greece. In those times, forks were carved from wood or animal bones. And then, with the arrival of the Roman Empire and its metallurgy industry, forks were produced from bronze or silver. The original use was for the user to hold something down, like a piece of meat, while it was being carved.
Mm-hmm.
Its entrance into individual usage comes as a dessert object. So in the 11th century, a Byzantine princess brought a 2-tined fork with her to eat fruits preserved in syrup. So the fork was a symbol of luxury for a long time.
Ooh la la.
Yeah. Ooh, you have a fork. Ooh.
See how you
You
like to
must be
live.
made of money.
You're living deliciously.
Yeah. Well, fruits preserved in syrup. Yum.
Yeah.
So, foods from the East have shaped European cuisine. Pasta was introduced by China, but rather than adopting the chopsticks, Italians preferred to repurpose the tools they already had. They originally used a single prong toothpick like tool called a punteruolo. Definitely butchered that. And it was made, but they decided to make it more efficient by adding the second prong. But only the wealthy had it. And I laughed at this because it became more common just because of the practicality. It was more using a fork was more sanitary than using hands and safer than placing food on the tip of a knife, which they used to do.
I've cut my tongue again.
Yeah, and apparently people they started using forks more often because when they used their hands, they would use the tablecloth to wipe their hands, and it was cheaper to wash cutlery than it was to wash the textiles. So it's
Oh.
like, okay, we need forks because we can't just keep washing our tablecloth.
We're a bunch of dirty bastards. We need to
Yeah.
clean our act up.
That rude. Don't wipe your hands on my tablecloth. Will I miss anything on forks? Did you find anything else?
I went kind of a different direction on it. You did the history. I did kind of the uses or what we see these days. And I got this from onthegas.org. And this is one of my favorite, part of this is one of my favorite like IQ points that we've done so far. But I got, kind of like you've said, forks started as like 2 prongs. They've kind of moved to 3 prongs, then 4 prongs. And the use is kind of dictated on the necessity of the food, which you kind of mentioned too, that the history of how we eat, what we eat declares what type of utensils or equipment we need. But with salad and common dinner forks, we usually see the 4-prong because we're trying to pick up more stuff. They're larger, they're better to scoop stuff up with. But with, what's called the toasting fork, where it's basically a 2-prong thing, you pick up meat and you use it for toasting meat or picking up small things and heating them up. Or seafood. Sometimes you'll see a 2-prong fork with seafood, and you think like with, I don't know, it's brought up like oysters or
I've seen it with like crab and lobster to like
that's
get
what it brought
into
up
the
too,
shell. Yeah,
crab as well. 2 or 3 prongs for those because they're usually a little bit more narrow, a little bit smaller, easier for digging out the meat. And they also brought up the dessert fork, which is usually 3 prongs. And again, part of the reason it said that you see the 3 prongs is because it allows for 2 of the prongs to kind of be angled in and have angles on them. So you get 2 things. One, you pick up smaller pieces for more exquisite taste, to really cherish the flavor. So if you have a really dense cake or something, you're taking smaller bites, where if you have a salad, you're trying to get more
shovel it in.
You're just shoveling it in, And the thing with the 3 prongs is you often see that they have sides more inclined for cutting, and especially in terms of, you brought up cakes. So if you have a slice of cake, the side of a 3-prong fork is usually designed for you to kind of carve out a section and then take a bite of it. But what I really like, this brought up 3-prong forks, brought up, with savoring food with like crab meat, or it brought up ice cream fork. What the hell's an ice cream fork? And so I looked this up. Any guesses what it is?
All right, hold on. An ice? Is it a spork?
It's a fucking spork. It is a spork.
Nailed it.
And if you look it up, like, what's the difference between a spork and an ice cream fork? People are like, ice cream forks are usually better quality. I'm like, it's the same thing. And so now every time I go to KFC, I'm gonna be like, could I have another ice cream fork, please?
They're gonna spit on your chicken now.
Yeah.
Worth it.
If we were in space, I'd be drinking it anyways. Alright, so that's what I had to add. But I love ice cream, so knowing there's a fork for ice cream, that made my day.
I know it. That's so fun that like we get the same IQ points, but we both research such different things.
Right? We go in different directions and just I like that too, that we're not finding the exact same stuff.
All right, well, they come to an agreement, and Ramona will bring Thai food from Siam Palace to Sheldon's place. And then she gets creepy because she already has his address. And I tried to look to see if Siam Palace was actually a real restaurant.
Yeah.
And if back in 2008, maybe. But as of like right now, well, there is one, but it's not in Pasadena. It's about 30 minutes away from Pasadena. It's in Azusa, California.
Oh, that's a little far away.
Yeah, so maybe they had one in Pasadena back in 2008.
I get a point for being like Sheldon here.
That you can't take the hint or to take cues or know that someone's stalking you?
Yes, I don't notice red flags.
Oh.
It's a big problem when people are like, Ryan, do you see what's happening? I'm getting a free dinner. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm getting dinner.
Yeah. So
I see. I can't see more clearly.
Do you guys not see what's happening? I'm getting a dinner.
And you're not. So you're back at neck and neck. Oh no, actually no. This takes you back to being a Sheldon.
I don't. I'm not going to look at it until the end of the episode.
All right,
we'll check it
I'll
out
stop
then.
counting. All right, all right. Well, on to the next scene. Ramona is waiting at the elevator, but then Penny sees and explains that it's out of order, and she asks where she's going, and she's going to 4A. The assumption is that she's there to see Leonard, but shocker. She's not. She's there for Sheldon. It's like Sheldon Cooper, tall, thin, looks like a praying mantis. I just like this. She's like, oh yeah, he is kind of cute, isn't he?
Looks like a praying mantis.
Gotta love that praying mantis look. Well, they enter the apartment, and there is a whole viewing party of what's happening. Raj and Howard are there. Leonard is there. Like, they all just hop on the couch. Like, what is happening? Ramona was late because she was reading a draft of his latest paper, and she's just really laying it on thick by how much, like, she loved it, how much of a genius he is. She knows how to play the right chords with Sheldon.
To stroke his ego. I was going to say, I get 1 point for being like the group here. I'd be in that viewing party.
Yeah.
And he goes, I want to see what happens.
Yeah.
I could see me. Yeah, that's definitely something I would do. I'm thinking Sheldon doesn't even notice why they're viewing or understand what's going on. So,
yeah.
1 point. Man, I'm handing out points left and right in this episode. It's a good episode.
Well, Ramona calls out the group by saying she didn't bring enough food. I thought we were going to be alone. So then the group leaves, and then as they leave the apartment, they're in the hallway, and Penny asks the straightforward question, what's Sheldon's deal? Is it girls, guys, sock puppets?
Sock puppets.
And it's something the guys have discussed in the past, and Howard is an advocate of mitosis. That one day he will eat extreme amounts of Thai food and then split into two. Whereas Leonard believes that Sheldon is the larval form of his species, and that one day he will create a cocoon and emerge 2 months later with moth wings and an exoskeleton. So, I guess half IQ point, but you know what? We don't do IQ points anymore, so we don't do half IQ points anymore.
In fact, fuck IQ points
Yeah.
too. We're just
Fuck it all. Well, I looked into what mitosis is, just so we're on the same page, because I wasn't sure. Like, I'm not that much of a science guy, so I wasn't. Because when Howard says that he eats massive amounts of Thai food and then splits, I wasn't sure if that had to happen or something, or if there had to be an action and the mitosis was the reaction. But
like cutting a worm in half and getting two worms, or a cell splitting in half.
Yeah.
Right? There's a little difference there, yeah.
Yeah. So I found this on yourgenome.com, and mitosis is when one cell divides to form two identical cells, and it occurs naturally in humans in times of growth. So as we're just aging and getting older, our cells are just multiplying, so it just kind of happens. So yeah, that's it. Easy.
But technically, it's not completely identical because we get those slight mutations, right?
I did not look into that.
That's, I could be all wrong on this, but that's part of evolution, is that every time a cell splits, it's like always slightly different. And it's pretty similar, but and that's the same thing with like viruses too, right? When they reproduce, they reproduce.
It changes.
Yeah, it's supposed to be exactly the same, but things they're a little bit off here and there, and then the strongest ones survive, and things change.
Yeah, I didn't go that deep into this one because I was satisfied with that one sentence.
I remember having to explain to my kids when I was in high school and talking to people who didn't believe in evolution. I had to do a lot of research and explain, like, you get a flu shot every year. And they're like, yeah, that's different. I'm like, no, it's not. That's evolution.
You are witnessing evolution. Science.
Science. You've been scienced.
Well, everyone wants to know what the plan is for tonight, since apparently they can't watch what's happening. And Howard's mom is making a brisket. And they're like, oh, is it the one with the little onions? Love those I love pearl onions. They're so good. And it's going to be a brisket party. And I really enjoyed Raj's enthusiasm.
That's 1 point for Raj here. That enthusiasm about a brisket party is something I would be all about.
Oh, yeah. Brisket's the best. And that's why I did an IQ point on it.
Oh, nice.
Yep. Food podcast.
Food podcast.
So again,
we're done with the IQ points. All food.
All food, yeah. So I looked into what a traditional Jewish brisket is. So I tried looking at a bunch of recipes and everything. I looked at the history of like why the Jewish community is really into briskets. I don't know if they are, but Howard talks about brisket a lot in this series. All right, let's deep dive what brisket means to the Jewish community. So I found this on myjewishlearning.com, Wikipedia, and koshereye.com. So if there's anyone out there that actually is Jewish and actually has like a great family recipe that they'd like to share, I think that'd be super cool. Just throwing it out there. Or if they just want to correct any of this information that we're doing. Because again, I found this on Google. So brisket is very popular amongst the Jewish community because it's one of the few large and visually impressive cuts of beef in which they could actually indulge on festive occasions. Brisket was cheaper back in the day as it's tough. But that's obviously not the case anymore because beef prices are insane right now.
Yeah.
But back in the day, it was very cheap. So that's why they really liked it, because it's like, okay, let's just take this cheap cut of meat and then let's just slow cook it.
And now that you know how to cook it just right, and it's like so good, right? It's so good.
Especially with that fat cap.
Yeah.
That's the best part.
Yeah.
Well, brisket is the cut that is also used for corned beef and pastrami. For anybody that isn't really into cuts of meat or really knows, the Jewish community is able to have beef brisket because it is classified as kosher since it comes from the front half of the cow. The lower half and all of its cuts are not kosher since they contain forbidden fats and the sciatic nerves that the Jewish people are not allowed to eat. Yeah, I didn't realize that because I knew I found it kind of funny as I was researching this. I was like, oh, they can have the front half of the cow, but not the back half. Like, why?
I never knew that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know a lot of Jewish people or really involved in like what their teachings are, so I don't really know what's kosher and what's not kosher.
Yeah. I'm
thinking it was fun researching this.
I don't think she was Jewish, but I remember meeting a woman in Japan, and she was actually from, I want to say she was from Kyrgyzstan, and I don't remember what religion she was, but she couldn't eat pork, and every time we went out to eat, especially fast food restaurants like McDonald's, she had to ask for like ingredients or what was in the beef or in the patties, because beef is kind of rare and expensive in Japan, so they mix it with a lot of pork. And so she couldn't eat a lot of the fast food hamburgers because they are not completely beef. I'm like, that gets really confusing. Like, I wouldn't even think of stuff like that. And like this with what part of the cow is it coming from? The lower part, the upper part? Like, I've never realized how intricate the decisions go, I guess, and how much effort you have to make to figure out where your meat's coming from.
Yeah, that under that logic, like anytime that Howard eats a hamburger, he would probably have to, like, if he was gonna be a good about it, if he was gonna be a good kosher Jew, then he would actually have to ask, like, oh, what cuts of this? If it's from everywhere, technically he can't have it. Yeah, it's not kosher.
We all have our flaws, so
yeah. We found out that he kind of bends the rules a lot,
right? Yeah.
Just like Raj with his diet too. Well, I started looking into recipes because I wanted to know what a traditional recipe was.
Yeah.
Because this dates back for like centuries. Well, not
Uh-huh.
really centuries, but like,
Well,
like a
actually,
long time.
centuries aren't like when you look at history, like centuries, like a century ago was like 1920. All right,
Yeah,
so
that's true.
it's
So
centuries. Yeah, it's not that long
okay,
ago.
technically it is centuries. Well, roasting and basting is the iconic method of cooking a brisket for American Jews. Adding earthy root vegetables dates back to the 17th century. Other immigrants began experimenting with richer, pricier foods such as red wine and tomatoes. Others began to employ new locally sourced ingredients, such as molasses and sorghum, to produce sweet, savory iterations, while some borrowed from other ethnic cuisines, inflicting or adding to their briskets dashes of soy sauce, amongst other things. Following the Second World War, the processed food revolution prompted many Jewish home cooks to swap fresh tomatoes from the garden in favor of Heinz ketchup, while newfound interest in tropical fruits due to veterans returning from the South Pacific, as well as increased travel to Hawaii, meant pineapple, and even sometimes meant that pineapple made it into the brisket as well. So, based off this, there really is no one traditional recipe. It's kind of just whatever family has their own special recipe. That's just what they do.
That's what they go with.
And one of the most common ways is prepared. Sorry, I wrote this kind of weird.
Oh, I can't read any of my handwriting.
One of the most common ways brisket is prepared in American Jewish cuisine is called a sweet and sour brisket and consists of a brisket cooked in a sauce containing crushed tomatoes, seasonings, brown sugar, vinegar, and beef or chicken stock. I'm not very articulate tonight.
No worries. I'm still on. I think it's so cool that when people travel, they bring back like little things like, hey, I was in this country and I like how this tasted, so I'm just going to start making it where I come from,
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm in
I
Hawaii. I'll bring back pineapples.
I like the adaptability. I
Hmm.
like they're like when you look at food history and food in general, like some people can be very like rigid when it comes to like in quote authenticity of a recipe.
Hmm.
But like I'm that type that's a lot more fluid with food, where it's like if you have a certain ingredient that can be a substitute or that can add a different complexity to flavors, I'm all for it.
I remember one time, it's a little bit off, but I used to have little potlucks at the end of the quarter when I'm teaching, and I would bring in some snacks, and students would bring in snacks. And I remember making cookies one time, and some girls brought in some cookies, and I had them like these are really good chocolate chip cookies, and they look at me weird. They're like, really? I'm like, yeah, they're great. And I'm like, you made them, right? And they're like, yeah, but are you sure you like them? I'm like, what's wrong with them? And apparently they screwed up the measurements and put in half the sugar. And for
And they
some
still
reason,
brought it.
they still brought it. And I thought they were delicious. I thought they were great. I
I don't
don't know.
judge the cookie. I judge them for knowing that they screwed up a recipe and still presenting it.
And not telling me until after I've eaten like three.
What was worst case scenario is that like everybody hates it and they're like, who brought these cookies? And now everyone looks to them and be like, why'd you bring the shitty cookies? Just don't bring it. At that point, plan B is just store bought.
That's true too. Although I think that year I screwed something up with my cookies too, and I brought them anyways. I can't. I think I added too much salt, and then they tasted fine, but they're a little salty.
It's actually not that bad because like it's like adding extra salt on top of a cookie because then it's sweet and salty.
That's
It's
there's a
the best.
bakery that sells cookies at my local brewery, and they're like a sea salt chocolate chip. Oh yeah, that's
Yeah. The last time I made cookies, I did a clone of the Panera everything but the kitchen sink.
uh-huh.
That's so good because it has so many sweet things in it, but then you also put in crushed pretzels, which adds a little saltiness to the innards of the cookie.
Yeah.
But then you sprinkle like coarse sea salt on the top of it, so it's like this salt and sweet punch.
Yeah.
If you haven't gotten that cookie, it is amazing.
I'm getting hungry between the brisket talk and the cookie talk.
Yeah. What other food things can we talk about? Oh, it's coming up.
Yep.
because now we're at the cafeteria, and Leonard comes up to Sheldon and he's like, "Oh, where's breakfast?" And then he asks, "Are you experimenting with nutritional suppositories again?" I would have loved to see him do that. Not like see him do it, but like
bend over, Sheldon. I want to see what happens.
But like him trying to like, it's like in episode like 2 or 3 when he's like working on eggs, trying to like perfect the egg and everything like that. I'd love to see him like trying to perfect the nutritional suppository. So I'm like, when did he do that? And
I've actually labeled this IQ point butt nutrition. I think nutritional suppository is more scientific, but butt nutrition.
Wait, so did you do an IQ point on butt nutrition?
I did.
All right.
I thought you looked into some of it. You didn't?
No, I didn't.
Oh yeah, no, and apparently I'm not the only one who was fascinated by this. There's actual scientific research. And I found at realclearscience.com an article that kind of got inspired because there was a South Park episode where people were learning to eat by putting food up their anuses and letting it go out their mouths.
I remember this episode.
However, according to this article, up till 1926, people believed there was some rationale and logic to this. But we have since learned that the digestive system is not a two-way street. It goes one way. Everything moves one way. And there was a study in 1926, and it was published in Nature Journal. I think it was called Nature Journal on December 11th, 1926. It was called, okay, now I'm going to be struggling with this word, rectal elimination, elimination. Elimination, basically intake of nutrients, nutritional intake, and I imagine that they had a bunch of scientist guinea pigs who were sticking food up their ass for this whole project. That's what I imagine, and they found that besides hydration, everything just kind of comes back out and you don't really get any nutrients from it.
God, I'd love to like be a fly at the wall at that panel of scientists that are just like, what if?
What we
Bear with me.
All this brisket and just shove it up our asses.
Before you naysay, I have a PhD in nutrition. So let's try this.
Sign me up. Give me a piece of that brisket.
I want to see like the chalkboard that they drew a diagram for that. Well, it totally makes sense.
In theory, it works.
My hypothesis goes up and then out.
It goes straight up.
Oh my god.
That's the whole IQ point. Not much there, but...
Well, that's crazy that like scientists actually thought that would work. But then again, you know what? They got all in the name of science.
And it was less than a century ago.
Oh god. Well, this got me like, I was racking my brain on this for like a long time because I listened to an episode of Stuff You Should Know a long time ago about this about a nutritional food that's basically like a drink or a paste or something that contains all nutrition all within that serving, and that could be the substitute for food. If you just eat this thing over and over again, like that's like your only source of meal because it
Yeah.
pretty much contains every vitamin and nutrient that you need. And I
Mm.
was racking my brain like, what is it? What is it called? I actually hopped on their website and scoured every like name for like the last like 15 years trying to find it, and I finally found it. It's Soylent.
Soylent.
Because Soylent was like a hot thing, not like a hot thing, but like scientifically, like people were like researching it and everything like that, like the uses of Soylent and everything, and trying to push it to the public and everything like that.
And
So
that goes
then
with
I
the
kind
movie, right?
what movie? There was a Soylent movie?
All right, guys, if you haven't seen this, spoiler alert, but there's a movie called Soylent Green. And in it, it's in a dystopian future where everybody's living miserably in cities and people are starving to death, and you can opt out of life. And when you opt out, you go into this machine that basically exposes you to the beauties of the world that used to be before it euthanizes you. What they don't tell you is when you die, they also process your body into Soylent Green. And
Oh.
the movie is about a guy finding out that Soylent Green is people, and it ends with him shouting, "Soylent Green's people!" But the big kicker on this is if you ever played the game Command and Conquer, I'm not sure if it's the original or if it's just Red Alert, but there was a code you could type in Soylent Green, and all the ore and minerals that you like harvest for money turn into people. And you watch your harvesters go out just ripping people out of the ground, and you hear them screaming.
Oh my god.
So whenever somebody says Soylent to me, I think people. So
Oh. Well, I don't know if this was an inspiration from the when did that movie come out?
I think the 70s.
Okay, so maybe this was one of those things like it was inspired by it, like scientists were trying to create that. I don't know if they use I doubt that they use people, but
I hope not, but
yeah, but there was a great episode of Stuff You Should Know. If anybody doesn't listen to that podcast, that is actually one of the inspirations of our podcast because I wanted to do like the IQ points and deep dive and everything just like what they do, except ours is much shorter since they actually do one topic and it's like a 45 minutes of that one topic.
They probably don't drink while they do it too.
They're missing out.
Yeah, that's really their fault.
Yeah, and I'm like staring at myself in the camera. I'm pretty pink from all the drinking. Should have had my allergy medicine. Shit. But then anyways, this got me thinking of like, you'd think that Sheldon, in his quest for always being efficient, always putting science first, you'd think that he would be a proponent of Soylent. But then I kind of took a step back and I realized, one thing that I really like about Sheldon is his appreciation of food. It's something that you don't really necessarily expect out of him because of like how science forward he is. He's the scientist. That's all he cares about.
Yeah.
But he actually loves food. If you like follow like and pay attention to like the series, he's like, granted he has like the same thing over and over again, but he is very adventurous somewhat. So unless there's a 3-time fork, he does really like culturally diverse foods. Like he loves Indian food. He gets Thai food all the time. He's a big fried chicken guy because he's from Texas.
At the
everything.
Episode with one of the episodes with the Chinese restaurant where he has to go with 4 friends so he can split courses, so he can have several courses. He could get just one, eat the whole thing himself, but he needs 4 people so that
because he wants the variety.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things like that's something that I really so then that's what I was like, oh, he'd be a proponent of Soylent. Oh no, wait, he actually really likes food. So
interesting.
It's never gonna happen.
You know, it had me thinking about It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where there's an episode where Charlie, tells Dee that she's wasting time and money on food, and all you do is you go to the store and you get some like vitamins, and you crush them up, and you like get some flour and some water, and you mash them up into balls, and then you just eat those balls, and that's all you need.
One of my favorite parts, like, I forgot what episode it was, but it was when Dee was trying to do something nice for Charlie, and she wants to buy him like a spa day, and he doesn't know what a spa is. So every time she kept saying, "I'm going to get you a spa day," he's like, "Are you spaghetti? You want to buy me spaghetti? Cool, I'm down with that." And then like, no, we're gonna go to the spa, and it kept going in circles, like, to get spaghetti. And then he goes to the spa, he gets his massage, his mani, his pedi, and everything. He's like, "So when's the spaghetti coming?" That's such a good show.
It really is.
I caught up at like season 9 or something like that, and I just never carried on. Just because it's so hard. Like, once you catch up to a show and you need to remember to watch it every week, it just doesn't happen.
Yeah, and then like I'm usually like, oh, I'll wait till it all comes out, and it usually takes at least 6 months to a year for it all to be out and streaming. And then by that time, I've forgotten it existed.
Yeah. I'd love to watch it with Christina, because they're on like, what, season 15 or something like that?
I think so.
Except I know Christina will hate it. She will hate this show.
That's what Kelsey is not a fan of it. My ex-wife hated it. She's like, they just bicker all the time. I'm like, but it's funny. It's funny bickering.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it's about family. It's about a father who wants to be closer to his son and daughter. But not really. That's how I should spin it. It's a heartfelt show about a father trying to reconnect with his son and daughter. I still sing all the Dayman songs.
Dayman.
Dayman. All right, back to Big Bang Theory. I'm sorry, everyone.
It's such a great show, though.
Well, Ramona brings Sheldon his breakfast, and let the inception begin. Ramona makes note that Sheldon has been wasting time in lines to get food, and that time could have been used towards science. But then Sheldon gets playful. You don't tackle it, you fence with them. En garde, repose. And then
I like
Leslie,
her giggles. She's like, hee.
Yeah, she's like laying it on so thick.
Yeah.
So then Leslie hops in and insults Sheldon, and Ramona is so quick to defend. It's been great. It was great banter. Leslie says, "I see you're organizing your papers for the Smithsonian Museum of Dumbassery." Ramona is very quick. She says there won't be any room until they get rid of the permanent Leslie Winkle exhibit. Burn.
And that I have an LOL for the look on Leslie's face right there. She's like,
"Oh, I wrote that down too." If you're gonna stay, you'll need to be respectful and quiet.
She just turns and leaves.
That'll never happen. And then Ramona turns and stares at Leonard, a death stare. And then he leaves. All right, now we're back at the apartment, and Penny received one of the guy's packages and enters, and to see, what does she see? Sheldon getting a foot spaghetti from Ramona. And it's like, what is happening? Holy crap on a cracker.
Crap on a cracker.
And then Leonard arrives because it's because it's Halo night at Raj's.
I like when he goes, what's going on there? She goes, I think I could only explain it in a therapist's office with dolls. She's been traumatized.
Well, it's Halo night, and Sheldon isn't able to go. And I made a note on this one that I think it's good that they balance the hang time at each other's homes. It's not always at Sheldon and Leonard's. It was pretty cool. But then that got me wondering, Where is Sheldon's spot in everyone's homes?
Oh,
Mm.
he's got to have a spot. That's true.
Yeah. Well, Sheldon starts getting ready to leave, but then Ramona outlogics Sheldon. She says science demands nothing less than the fervent and unconditional dedication of our entire lives.
A great man once said it.
And who is that great man? Sheldon.
That's right.
Of course, he lived by his own quotes. And this sets the stage for the next montage of Sheldon getting caught having fun.
Mm-hmm.
So Sheldon asks about paintball on the weekends. Well, what about Battlestar Galactica? Well, he can just get the DVD and never watch it.
Never watch it.
It's like, oh my god. And then it's a great montage, which features a Bare Naked Ladies song. You could be my Yoko Ono.
They got Bare Naked Ladies again.
Yep.
Yeah.
And during this montage, we see Sheldon saying goodbye to the guys as they leave for paintball, getting caught playing Nintendo DS in the bathtub.
No, that was a PSP.
Oh, okay. It was a PSP?
Oh, yeah. I have all those failed systems.
Oh.
I'm like
PSP.
9% sure it's PSP. I'm like, oh, no, PSP.
Correction. And then Ramona removes a book to reveal that he was reading a comic book. Sheldon tries to escape to play paintball, but then he sees Ramona and he has to like bolt back up the stairs, and he's out of breath and sitting in his underwear with his paintball helmet on.
He looks kind of creepy there. He turns over and
he's like, that's Sheldon's smile. So watching this entire montage, I actually had like a kind of a big problem with like what was happening, which they will kind of get into like the reason behind Ramona's intentions and everything, or why she was pushing him so hard.
Yeah.
But like I had a really big problem with like the overall concept of it, because like since they're academics, they should know better that you can't just learn by work.
Mm-hmm.
Because I did an IQ point on this, because years ago I remember hearing about this, that if you access your creative side of your brain, it will actually help boost intelligence. I don't know if you've ever heard that or know anything about that, but I did an IQ point on that.
I've always heard that when it comes to studying and even in teaching, they give teachers like a 2-3 hour class, and I've learned both through experience and from my own research that it's best to take like a 10-minute break, 15-minute break if you're studying, and get up and stretch and do something else and then come back, because if you push yourself through it and just study for 3 hours, the amount you actually retain is less than if you take a 10-15-minute break and come back and then do it. And same thing with teaching. If I don't give students like 10 minutes to get up and stretch, they're all falling asleep and nobody hears anything in the second hour. So that's been my findings.
I remember that specific thing in psychology, that when you learn something, or when you're like visually or audio or any sort of learning, you remember the first thing and the last thing, the best. Everything in between is kind of hazy. Yeah. That's why when you teach things or when you're learning, it needs to be in shorter spans, because it reduces the amount of time in between. So you'll actually learn a little bit more.
That makes sense. A lot more beginnings and ends.
Yeah. But this IQ in particular goes into like the breaks and everything, but a lot of it had to do with like the artistic side. Because like I remember learning this, I forgot where I learned it. Was like back in high school or something like that, where they were saying that exposure to art and other things and other hobbies will actually boost intelligence.
Yeah.
So that's something that always stuck with me for like throughout like my entire life. So this podcast got me to research it even more. So, IQ points. Doesn't accessing the creative part of your brain boost intelligence? I found this amongst multiple websites: fastcompany.com, health.cornell.edu, edutopia.org, and wondriumdaily.com. And the answer is yes. IQ point over.
That's full of the... And we're done. With all the show.
So all the things that Sheldon was trying to do that Ramona was blocking could be potential ways for Sheldon to be even more productive. And under that logic, he could have made his discovery much earlier. Granted, you can't prove that, but theoretically. There's something called the extended mind that has showed that the thinking process extends outside of a person's head. What that means is that information that is taken from the outside of the head is drawn into the thinking process. Researchers have discovered that walking, exercising, and acting things out, or maybe even paintball, enhances our mental process in ways that don't happen when we're just sitting around or just sitting in front of like the research itself. These external forces can help boost thinking. Physical activities also reduce stress, increase blood flow, and oxygenation to the brain, helping to keep people's brains sharp, healthy, and active. This also boosts neural connectivity and stimulates nerve cell growth in the hippocampus, which is the center of learning and memory. And his love of Battlestar Galactica and comic books might be a stretch in this argument, but in general, art can boost brain activity. There's increasing evidence in the field of neuroscience that art enhances brain function by impacting brain wave patterns, emotions, and the nervous system. And this isn't just in the creation of art, but by experiencing art as well. Observation of art can stimulate the creation of new neural pathways and ways of thinking. So I would say that comics are art in this situation. Bit of a stretch, but you know what? I'm going to say it.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I'm thinking that popular fiction and sci-fi novels, get like Bradbury, Philip K. Dick and stuff, that a lot of sci-fi has actually pushed scientists to invent the stuff that's in the stories. And so, like, I can't remember any examples, but I want to say, like, cars, maybe, automobiles, like, were part of the story, and then somebody reads the story and is like, I think I can invent that, or that's a really good idea. We should have something like that. But I can't think of any specific examples. But apparently it does happen. And I think you're right that even if it's popular medium, like comic books or sci-fi novel, it still inspires, and it's this artistic balance.
Yeah. And back to what we were saying about purposeful breaks, Ramona's approach was very misguided because she was encouraging work, work, work. But the research has actually showed that taking purposeful breaks, anywhere from 5 to 60 minutes from studying or working, can refresh your brain and body, and your body increases your energy, productivity, and ability to focus. But according to the research, social media doesn't count.
Oh, that's
I
interesting.
guess something else happens in the brainwave activity where it's not as functional as other activities. So it's better to choose activities that give your mind a break and allow you to breathe deeply, laugh, move your body, be creative, or zone out
Pornhub it
on
is.
purpose. Done. There's a new a documentary on Netflix, I think.
I saw it. I haven't watched the documentary, but I saw it advertised. It's like the story behind it, right?
Yeah.
I'm curious.
Yeah, I'm a little curious. I may or may not. Yeah.
Oh, I'm watching it. I just don't know when. Vacation.
Ooh, on the cruise. I need a little break time.
I remember one time I was going to Australia, and weird thing, like, somehow I got put at the back of the plane while my friends got put at the front of the plane, and I was between these two men who were a couple, and they had chosen the window seat and the aisle seat. So I was like literally between a couple, and I'm me, and I like to watch weird stuff, and I picked like the weirdest movie they had on the plane. It was a French horror film, and I've come to learn that it's like one of the
Do you mean French horror film?
French. It had horrors in it too. I can't remember what it's called, but it was about this like Actors Guild or something that are partying, and somebody laces their punch with like LSD. I believe they start going crazy and like cutting each other up. And so I'm watching this. I'm like, technically, it's not even my own movie. I'm just watching it on the plane. The plane has it. And these guys are like looking over at me, looking at what's on the screen. And finally, I pause. I'm like, this is a French film. They're like, oh, okay.
Guys, it's French.
It's French. And they're like, oh, yeah.
Okay. I'm a little curious on their story. Like, why did they like... Christina would never let that fly on a plane where it's like, okay, I'll be over here and I'll be over here. Nope. We are sitting side by side. We are getting an aisle in the middle. We don't need the window. It's like, yes, dear.
You'd think. But what I was a fan of is they were... I'm not very chit-chatty, but they're chatting with the flight attendant, and she was giving them free beverages, and she'd come by and be like, how are my boys doing? And I'm like, we're good. And she'd give us a beverage. I'm like, yes. By beverage,
were you just in the premium seating where it's just free?
No, we were like by the bathroom in the back.
Okay. I was like, Ryan, were you already wasted?
Yes.
So that's their angle. All right. Well, last thing on this IQ point, taking breaks is a key part of learning. Breaks help students process what they've learned by consolidating memories and making connections to other ideas. So, taking breaks is important and can actually help boost your intelligence, boost your productivity. So, technically, Ramona should have just let him play with his PSP for like 20 minutes.
Right? Here and there. One Wednesday night for Halo is not going to ruin everything.
Well, we will discover why she was so pushy a little later on.
I was also going to throw in here that I don't think she ever saw The Shining.
All work and no play makes Shelley a dull boy.
Exactly. And if you don't remember, we do talk about the last Halloween episode, dressing up, and I actually went as Jack Torrance for Halloween last year.
Yeah, it's posted on our Instagram, so follow our Instagram. All right. Well, now we are outside of Penny's apartment, and we get the 3 knocks. Knock, knock, Penny. Knock, knock, Penny. Knock, knock, Penny. And Penny just opens the door. Is like, dude, it's a small apartment. You only need to knock once. I like that they kind of called it out.
Finally, yeah.
Yep. And I love this, that he needs help from Penny to get rid of Ramona, since Penny is the expert at ending relationships. Because he sees man after man coming and going from this apartment.
And never coming back.
And Penny's like, it's not man after man. Well, then Ramona shows up, and Sheldon is obviously scared of Ramona, and he is very quick to blame Penny for being a distraction.
I actually have a point being like Sheldon here. I could see me saying something like, she finally fell asleep, help me get rid of her. And Penny's like, what do you mean by that? Like, I don't know what I mean. I was just, help me.
Well, Sheldon is like, looking at Sheldon's personality, he normally is a very strong-minded person, and you'd think under different circumstances he wouldn't let this fly. He would just tell her to, screw off, go away. But I think what Ramona got right is that she out-logicked him.
Yeah.
And I think that's why he's under this, not trance or spell, but like he's chained to her, because it's like, crap, I know she's right.
That and stroking his ego so hard that
Yeah.
that's his Achilles heel, right?
Yeah. This girl knows how to play the game.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Ramona thinks that Penny is in love with Sheldon.
Oh, I'm taking a
But
step. I have a IQ
oh.
point.
Oh,
Yeah,
what you got?
it's not much of one, but it's a little one. He says, "I formally request sanctuary," and I was wondering where that came from because what I know it from, and I went to history.com. That Hunchback of Notre Dame, right? That he requests sanctuary at the cathedral, and that's typically where prisoners or people who have done something criminal has gone to hide. And we think about it with Christianity, but according to history.com, it dates back much longer, much further back, and that Greek and Roman temples often had sanctuary provided for criminals who ran there. And the notion was that it was immoral, unethical to bring weapons into such places or to use force in such places. So it allowed people to seek sanctuary there. Um, but what I found was that, oh yeah, the other thing was as the church, especially the Catholic Church, was growing, some history with England there too, that the church questioned secular punishment and authority, that they were basically saying, we work on our own standard and we don't trust the government. We have our own higher authority to work with, which means that we don't follow your laws necessarily. And that didn't go over completely well, but it basically turned into, at least in England, that if people went into churches, they use it as a time to deal with what's going to happen when they exit. But usually it came down to, if you went to a church for sanctuary, you were, what's the word, thrown out of the country, deported. That you basically said, I will no longer live here. Maybe that's better than going to jail, but you basically, it's the card, putting it down saying, okay, I will leave the country, that I don't want to deal with your system anymore. But I did find that interesting, that there is some history there with the church kind of, well, not just churches, but temples being of a higher authority than man-made ones. And for him to say, well, in this case, Sheldon, speaking of the Hunchback, in this case, still saying that Penny is some higher authority than I need to hide me because I don't know what to do next. So, anyways, small IQ point, but still there.
Nice. Ramona accuses Penny of being in love with Sheldon, and she says that Sheldon is a gift to the world and we can't be selfish. And then she shows her sociopathism, where she's like, sisters. She smiles, and then the moment she turns away,
dead face.
Dead face. I'm like, oh my god.
I love the dialogue here where Ramona's like, I know what's going on. He's like, good, could you explain it? She's like, you're in love with him. She's like, no, that's not it.
Definitely not.
No.
Well, now we're in Leonard's room, and Sheldon is Morse coding Leonard through the wall, and it's not working at all. So then Sheldon has to go over to his room, and I love that in their relationship, Leonard is able to read Sheldon's actions, that he just knew that he would come over. At the first sign of complication, he's like, crap, he's coming over. Don't come over, don't come over, don't come over. And then he comes over.
Don't do it.
And this is a fun interaction where Sheldon is constantly invoking all these different clauses to Leonard in seek of help. So first he invokes the Skynet clause, but it doesn't apply because it only applies if he needs help stopping AI from taking over the world. And then he invokes the Body Snatcher clause, but Ramona was not replaced with an alien pod, so
it doesn't count.
So they think. And then Ramona enters and is like, hey, what are you doing up? Time to go back to bed. As she escorts him back to bed, Sheldon tries to invoke the Godzilla clause.
Godzilla clause.
But she's not destroying Tokyo, so
Not unless she
doesn't
destroys
count.
Tokyo.
God, it makes me wonder how many clauses there actually are.
And I was kind of wondering, is he just making them up and Leonard knows what he's talking about? Or have they actually discussed these in the past that we have to be prepared in case?
I'm going to say it's the latter part of that, and you will find out why later.
Huh. Spoiler. Well, I guess not. It's not
well,
spoiler,
half
but...
no. Teaser.
Teaser.
It's a teaser. Well, now we move to the next scene, and Sheldon has done it. He finally reconciled the black hole information paradox with his theory of string network coincidates, and it's all thanks to Ramona. And I believe you might have an IQ point?
I tried really hard, so I'm going to share what I got. With the black hole information paradox, and I'm having trouble understanding the difference between information and energy, but apparently there is a difference. I was, probably get this wrong, but energy is the force and movement of something of matter, and information is the actual data material that exists, I guess. That's how I understood it. But according to scientificamerican.com, and yeah, I looked at a couple different articles on there. That's this notion that you first have to understand what a black hole is, and we've probably talked about this, but really quickly, it's a star that's gone too big for its britches, and it has so much gravity. It's so dense that it starts falling in on itself. That the gravity just starts pulling it all in to the point where the molecules are like basically hitting each other and it can't go any further. And then that's technically a neutron star, I believe. The black hole is so big that even at that point, the molecules kind of collapse on each other and it keeps going in. And the gravity is so intense and so dense that even light can't escape it. That if you have light shining in it, the gravity pulls it in, or it kind of bends it, and we see light bending by black holes. But if it goes past the event horizon, that edge, it does not come back. And that's why it's called a black hole, is because in our telescopes we just see these black dots where light does not escape. The problem with this is that Stephen Hawking discovered black holes radiate a bit, that they shoot out bits of radiation. And this is where things start getting confusing about, if light can't escape, why are they shooting out radiation? And also this notion that in most situations, we can tell about information, about matter, about a system from its current state about previous states and how it works. And it brings up an example that keeps getting brought up are waves in water, and that we can look at water and say, we understand that flat water works this way. If water is in a wave, we understand how it works. I also brought up an example. If we look at water molecules, we can understand how water works on a bigger picture, a bigger scale, and so on and so on. But with black holes, that doesn't work. That we see the radiation coming out, we have no idea what's going on in the inside. In fact, we don't even know where all that matter's going. Some people think it's like wormholes and the matter's just going to a different black hole and spewing out. But basically, black holes will radiate until they just kind of dissolve on themselves. And there's been some new research and data, like basically just in the last year or two during the pandemic, that strives to explain this, but it's all above my head. I think it's kind of top of the line science stuff, but it's this notion that with everything else in the world or in the universe, we can kind of tell more about the matter, tell more about the information in the system being provided, except with black holes. With black holes, they kind of break our understanding of what's happened, what will happen, and what's going on. And so it's this paradox that we don't know what's going on in black holes, but he claims he solved it with his theory of string network condensates. And this, again, way above my head, even where the black hole stuff was above my head, this was even more so. I get that's a physical mechanism for topographic phases. Basically, it's this notion of, I guess, strings. I was thinking strings, these lattices of strings that create gauge bosons and fermions when they kind of collapse on themselves, when they basically work like springs. When they pull in and condense, they release particles. And I don't know how or why that would connect with black holes or the black hole paradox. And from what I've seen in the most recent studies, nothing connects to that. So I think that's kind of fictionalized, but again, it's above my head, and pretty hard stuff. But that's what I got. Hopefully, maybe if somebody has more information out there, please share it with me. I watched some really cool videos about black holes and how particles that just come out of nowhere can manifest on both sides of the event horizon. And if particles, or whatever they are, matter particles, go on both sides, part of it will split off because the other part can't escape the event horizon, and that's partially why it radiates. But some cool stuff, but way above our IQ understanding.
Definitely above our understanding.
Mm-hmm.
It does kind of put into question what this show does, like in terms of like every time that they make a discovery, is it fictionalized, or did at the time somebody actually discovered something and they're just kind of stretching it that Sheldon is the one that discovered it or something like that. Yeah.
And I was kind of
I've always been a little
impression,
curious about that.
Yeah. That they just kind of do the top of the line stuff and say, Sheldon's got it. And
yeah, he figured it out. It's out there now.
It's a Shelley thing.
Well, Sheldon is so happy, and he thanks Ramona for everything because, according to him, it's all because of her. So then how can Sheldon repay her? Well, he could share credit. And this is so on brand with Sheldon, where she's like, you could call it the Cooper-Nowitzki Theorem, which is the name of the episode. And he's just like, who's Nowitzki? Of course he would. Of course he wouldn't care. Yeah, because you don't care about other people.
I forget. Well, maybe it seems like that, but I forget names all the time. And I'm like, who's that? Ryan, you're talking to them.
Yeah. I've only hung out with you every weekend for like the last year. Sorry, your name is your name is Roger?
Roger?
It's Rob. It's
Holy
Robert.
Shit. Holy crap on a cracker. I thought you were Roger.
Thanks, Ronald.
Okay, Ross. You can stop it now.
Well, then she says, well, I'm Nowitzki. And that's where he draws the line.
That's
He's
the
like,
line.
nope, you got to go.
Get out.
On her way out, Ramona runs into Penny, and she's like, bite me.
Sisters.
And I like that Penny's like, sisters?
Sisters.
And now we're at the next scene, and we're in the cafeteria, and the guys are approached by another girl, and it follows the exact same pattern as Ramona. And Thursday night is pizza night, and where he gets pizza from Giacomo's. Not a real place. I looked into it, and it's not. But his usual order is sausage, mushroom, and light olives. Good combo. I like it.
I usually go with sausage and mushroom and usually some other stuff, but sausage and mushroom are like the two main things for me.
Yeah, I love sausage, mushroom. Throw in some jalapenos in that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, good.
Add a little bit of vinegar, a little bit of spice. Or anchovies. We had a deep dive on anchovies not that long ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, somewhere in season 1.
They're actually pretty helpful for you. They're not bad.
Yeah. Well, everyone's like, Sheldon, what the hell? And he's just like, yeah, I'm getting a free pizza.
Free pizza.
Yep.
Which doubled down why I gave him the point earlier about I'm getting a free dinner. Like, I'm getting free pizza.
Yeah, hell yeah. And now we're at the ending scene where we're in the living room and everybody is eating Thai food. And Sheldon just wants a little bit more pad Thai. And boom, he splits into two.
He's my toast.
Yep. And then Leonard wakes up from the nightmare. No more Thai food.
No more Thai food. I like that wasn't even Leonard's theory. It was Howard's theory. So
Yeah.
Leonard's just that scared of it.
Yeah. Because that's definitely more realistic than him cocooning and bursting out with feather or with moth wings and exoskeleton. All right, and that's the episode. Woo-hoo. We did it. Overall thoughts?
I like that one. A lot of laugh out loud moments. The IQ points were fun. The ones that we understood. I think it was overall just a good episode. Got some Leslie in there. Got some Ramona.
Yeah. It was a really good episode. I really like this one. Sheldon episodes are really fun. Just kind of like diving more into his character of who he is as a person, that he can pretty much, if you were friends with someone like Sheldon, you could easily manipulate him so well if you could just outlogic him. And that's really it. And I remember something like this happened at the Peanut reaction. Season 1, episode 16, I think, where he was manipulated because he was outlogicked. He didn't want to give Leonard a birthday gift, but then Howard kind of just outlogicked him. He was like, it is, I forgot what the exact wording
social
was,
requirement,
but it was
or something.
Yeah, it was a or shit. It was something. It was basically. Yeah, it was something. It was basically like, hey, it's a social obligation. Yeah. And then he was like, oh, okay. I'll do it. So I enjoy that characteristic of Sheldon.
I've tallied up the points. We are neck and neck, 37 and 37.
Dang. And how many IQ points? I guess I won't count your partial then.
That's fair.
Because you did like
half.
You said it was an attempted IQ point.
Yeah.
Otherwise, 8 IQ. 8 IQ points.
That's a good number.
All right. Any last minute things?
I think that's it.
Anything that we may have missed? Any noteworthy things?
I think we got them all. I know saying that there was no specific Halloween episode this season. So I'm hoping that maybe we'll have a Thanksgiving episode or a Christmas episode. I'm trying not to look ahead at all, so I'll just be surprised when I watch. But yeah, we'll be looking forward to one of those in the next 3 or 4 episodes if they do come up.
Well, the next episode's really good too.
Is it?
Yeah. Next episode is season 2, episode 7, the Panty Pinata Polarization.
Huh.
This is a good one. Yep. I will say that I'm looking forward to one of the IQ points, because one of the things that is mentioned in this episode was the other inspiration to the creation of this podcast.
Oh.
But you know what? You'll have to tune in next time.
That's next time's problem.
Yeah.
I guess it's not a problem, but whatever.
Well, thanks for joining us. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Remember to please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Subscribe to us on YouTube, where you could see our pretty faces. You could see how drunk I get based off the color of my face. If you're on YouTube, gingerly tap that like button.
Just a little like.
Follow us on Instagram at Theoretical Nonsense Pod. Email us if you want to connect with us at theoreticalnonsensepod@gmail.com. Shout out to my brother. Thanks for the review. Shout out to Jake for sending us a comment. You should comment on all of them. And we will see you all next time when we talk
if you prefer ice cream fork or spork. What's your
Oh,
preference?
yes. Put that comment. We need a poll.
Comment.
Is it spork or is it ice cream fork?
It's ice cream fork. We know where I stand on this.
Well, we'll see you next time when we discuss and deep dive season 2, episode 7, the panty pinata polarization.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for listening. This was Theoretical Nonsense, the Big Bang Theory watch-along podcast. No PhD required. Our intro and outro music is by Alex Grohl, and our logo is by John Kim. Thanks for listening. You gots to go.